130 years isn't a very long time, and people haven't changed very much or really altered in any way since the 1850s in terms of the way they think or obviously our activities are much more high technology than the activities.
I was on my way to tape some wrestling promos when I ran into my pal Alex. He was getting ready to shoot his new film down in Nicaragua and mentioned there might be a job for someone who could get down there with a video camera. Exotic locales, movie stars, controversy galore. It sounded like my kind of adventure. Except there was a war going on, and I wasn't too keen on getting shot.
The best idea is to go and check it out, because you can get on an airplane and go to Nicaragua and check it out for yourself and see if you think that Ronald Reagan is right or that things are different. But you owe it to yourself to find that out, I think.
In 1855, William Walker led a mercenary army of 56 men to Nicaragua and took over the country. 130 years later, he returned.
Absoluto silencio, por favor. No quiero que me hablen, no quiero que caminen, no quiero que platiquen, por favor. Esto es una cosa muy peligrosa. Hemos trabajado muy duro para llegar a este punto. Gracias.
The acid approach, no matter how much we warned them of how big the film would be and what a circus it would be to have it in Nicaragua, they had no idea what was coming down on them.
¡Patria libre! ¡Patria muerte!
After years of repression, the dictator Anastasio Somoza was overthrown in a popular uprising orchestrated by the Sandinistas, which evidently caused President Reagan grave concern.
Nothing is as urgent as the question of Nicaragua.
Reagan had some pretty vivid ideas on what the Sandinistas were up to.
And their whole reason for being is to spread the revolution, to strike ultimately at the very heart of the West. And that's what the Sandinistas mean to do.
Reagan's concern motivated others to finance a counter-revolutionary army known as the Contras.
So I guess in a way they are counter-revolutionary, and God bless them for being that way. And I guess that makes them Contras, and so it makes me a Contra too.
Tens of thousands of people had been killed or maimed, and a U.S. embargo was crippling the economy. What better time to be making a movie about another American with democratic designs for Nicaragua? We were shooting in the streets of Granada, the oldest city and former capital.
Is my scab coming off?
Walker had come to Nicaragua with the selfless intentions of ending a civil war, making the country fit for commerce, and bestowing upon her the blessings of democracy. Somewhere along the line, his plans changed. The gray-eyed man of destiny seized the country, declared himself president, and made plans to conquer the whole region.
Ready, ready? One right after the other.
Este lado también, el otro lado, no quema.
Okay, bueno, vámonos.
Let's shoot it anyway.
Roll down, clear the way.
His reign of terror ensued for 2 years. Casualties were in the thousands. Ultimately, the armies of Costa Rica, Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala joined the Nicaraguans in the battle to get rid of him.
This is an important occasion. You've got no headline here. I want Granada burns, Nicaraguans rejoice, Walker in control. And I want it in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Sir? Manufacturer, sir. We caught them doing the bank.
Yes. What are the charges against these men?
Desertion, sir.
What do you men have to say for yourselves?
Carlos, you like the Granatas.
I see what we did was wrong. We wish to stay to the end.
You men had your choice. Now you've lost it. Execute these men immediately.
Forced to retreat from Grenada, Walker ordered the city burned to the ground, not for strategic purposes, but because he was miffed that the Nicaraguans refused to accept his gifts of liberty and freedom. As a final insult, Walker's men stuck a lance in the ground bearing a banner that read, "Here was Grenada."
When Alex and I first approached the Encine and we appeared and spoke to Julio Torres and Carlos Alvarez, they took us very lightly in the sense that here are these two young guys that want to come and make a film in Nicaragua about a theme which is very Nicaraguan. Their response was, send us a script, the government will approve it, and on the basis of that we can proceed. But they thought, hell would freeze over on the day that we'd be able to put it together and bring it down. Originally, we were going to shoot half the film in Mexico, half the film in Nicaragua.
Some of the money that we thought we had secured fell through at the last minute, and it gave Alex the excuse that he needed, or rather it gave the producers finally no reason to shoot in Mexico, and given the lesser money they had, more reason to shoot in Nicaragua.
Well, there was certain weeks where payroll expanded to 440 people. That's between construction crews, art crews, the caterers.
Aquí se abren de Coca-Cola diario de 2,200 cajillas.
The electricians who were taking down poles and wires.
Politically and the safety, there is no problem over here. The only difficulty is getting the material in time and the material itself. Paint, we had to import it, brushes, hinges, lacks, plywood, glue, electric tools, hand tools, you name it. I knew it was going to be tough. I didn't think it was going to be this tough. But at the same time, it hasn't been that crazy that we couldn't do it.
We couldn't have made this film anywhere else as well or as cheaply as we did in Nicaragua. And we would never ever have had as much support and as much, enthusiasm for the project as we got here.
We started dirting the streets to camouflage the paved streets. One lady was so mad about the dust. She said, William Walker was here 150 years ago and burned Grenada. Now he's back to contaminate Grenada.
The first 3 weeks were very jittery, and at the same time, after that, it just became a fact. We knew we were going to finish. We knew it was going to take every hour from that point on till the end to finish, but we knew we were going to be able to finish the film.
We met in Santa Monica. Sat down on the sidewalk and talked. And then he came up to Portland where I was doing a film, and I read for him and told me he wanted me to do it. So, and I liked the script. I liked the fact that it was based on this guy's life, that I didn't really know anything about. And I liked the fact that he wanted to shoot it here in Nicaragua.
How did you prepare for the role? Did you study?
I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking for 6 weeks, lost a little weight. I read as much as I could about him. Yeah, I read everything. I learned sign language because his girlfriend was deaf. I learned so that I could talk with Marley. And
how did you relate to this guy?
Well, that's kind of a good question, because the script is not, it's not like a character study of this guy, you know, it's really events that he made happen, that happened around him. You don't really spend too much time with him alone. You gotta internalize it as much as possible. I think I got inside this guy pretty good. There was a period, like the second or third week of shooting, where some stuff started coming out of me. I don't know where it was coming from, so I figured I was on the right track, because it was just Walker, you know?
Born in Tennessee, he was educated as a doctor and a lawyer before moving to New Orleans to become a journalist. His filibustering adventures to Mexico and Nicaragua were closely followed by the press and made him one of the most famous men in America. There was even a musical performed about him. Today, he is all but forgotten in his native land. But in Nicaragua, he's like Osama bin Laden. Next to the set was an elementary school, and I stopped by to do some research.
William Walker era un hombre cruel, defensor de la esclavitud y representante a los Estados Unidos. William Walker era un gran hombre, pero muy cruel. Walker se elige presidente en julio de 1856. Él se elige presidente y provoca muchos extractos. Y como él dictó unas leyes imponiendo la esclavitud y también que los nicaragüenses habláramos el inglés.
Me gustaría saber quién quiere ir a Estados Unidos.
Yo.
¿Por qué?
Porque es muy bonito.
The soldiers carry books and police carry weapons. The little boys and girls do not beg for money, they beg for pens. Any country where you have young people begging for pens so they can write and go to school is progressing. If they can get the education, they eventually will get the other things they need.
For Nicaragua, William Walker is the definitive symbol of American malevolence.
Colonel, over here!
But what did Walker himself want?
What are the charges?
What were his ambitions?
Piracy and failure to pay your bills.
Maybe there's a hint in the name he gave to the original 56 recruits that followed him to Nicaragua.
We're going to take a foreign country and live like kings. Avast, landlubbers! You make me puke!
He called them the Immortals, but maybe that's what he always wanted to be.
Terry's asked me to run through, if I can, some kind of methods of camera hogging, which they've been studying here in Nicaragua these last 2 months. They used to be called focus pulling or scene stealing, but now camera hogging's the term. Okay, I'm going to walk out the frame and come in, give a small example of how, say, Ed Pansulo, who's playing Major Angus, might hog this scene, okay?
I hear.
You ain't got a hair under your kill if you won't come down here and say it in my face.
My character is Dr. Jones, who has a little laudanum problem.
C.C. Hornsby, historically, was a white man.
Sly Stubbins, El Primero Rambo.
Timothy Crocker, he's a loyal aide de camp.
I play Benito.
Byron Cole.
Achilles Coon.
William Walker's brother, James.
Colonel Sanders, he's historically accurate.
Can you tell me the name of your character? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who you are and what you play.
I'll tell you, there are a lot of journalists on this set. More press on this film than any film I've been involved in, and every single one of them has asked me that question.
Okay, this is how René Auberginois fights off the enemy. So we got the frame here, right? And he'll go, noticing that he never leaves the frame.
Most of the people in this film were cast for their personalities. Most of them are pretty vibrant. A few of them you've heard their stories over and over again by now, but
you gotta wake yourself up, get yourself to the set, build your own props. You've got to be responsible to be in this movie, and it's one thing that I really hate.
Dick Rude is very aggressive. He'll come at you from this quarter, like, when he's caught, and he'll come right at you like this.
You think you're gonna be in this big illusion, and then you have to create it yourself.
It's a pity they run out of beer at 5 in the afternoon.
That's the only drawback in Nicaragua.
That's the only drawback. So I had to switch to rum.
El personaje de Mayorga empieza prácticamente a comprender de que William Walker no representa los intereses del pueblo de Nicaragua, ni viene a establecer la paz, ni la democracia y la civilización en nuestro país.
And I don't feel any hostility being American, which I thought might be. I mean, I think I would feel hostile towards the American if I was a Nicaraguan.
Yeah, I was scared. Well, basically because the way the media, portrays it as really being like I thought I was going to get shot as soon as I got off the plane.
David Chung now, this is a sneaky one. This is the subtle school, none the less effective for that. I'm going to come through the frame as David Chung. You've got to imagine something important's happening here, and what I'm doing has nothing whatsoever to do with it. And on my arm I've got a huge, giant, multicolored parrot.
There's definitely a parallel in terms of the atmosphere of this film coming down here, and just the assumption that what we're doing is a good thing. And
so tell me about your character, Ellen Martin.
Well, she's a woman who William Walker loves a lot, and I like her, right? I like her for her strength. I think for being herself, she's very aggressive. And yet she doesn't think about her deafness. She thinks of herself and is very brilliant, I think. She is extremely powerful. I find her very fascinating.
We have a great cast. It's just that these guys are a long way from home and they're getting a little lecherous.
And she's a seductive girl with Walker to has power. She's Corral's lover too, because he's in the power too. So he wants the power. Doesn't matter what way she needs to take.
The script is funny anyway. I think the script has a real comic opera style about it.
Well, I don't think either of us wanted to make some sort of cliched, literal period piece that had a sort of a one-dimensional political message to it.
I mean, it's Rudy Wurlitz and the people, the whole story with Bruno von Namser and Houtman Pranger and Washburn Fawcett, Daniel Stebbins, C.C. Hornsby, all these characters. I mean, it's a funny film.
Xander and Spider falling down, just happening to be here. Right up to the generals. Lots of noise, Lots of agonized going down and coming back up and then going back down. And then, oh, can they get up? And then, about the 5th time down, the director shouts, "Get the fuck up and get out of the frame!" So they get back up and they get out of the frame.
I was hoping to ride with Alex and the cast over to the new location, but there was only room on the extras bus. That's where I learned that things weren't as copacetic as I had imagined.
Justice! Food! Food! Money! Justice!
Move! Move! Justice! Woman! No more than 14 hours a day! No more than 3-hour bus rides! No more than 6 buses per day! That's very nice. sorry, Clementine.
If you were doing My Darling Clementine, and then when you see these women, all of a sudden somebody breaks in.
We're trying to get inspired by girls. Who knows Pop Goes the Weasel?
We spent a lot of time, effort, and energy getting into the character.
Tell me about how it is to work with Alex.
You know, he may be ill-mannered at times, rude, and says what's on his mind. You know, but that's important in a creative person, you know. It's not worried about other people's feelings.
Can I have Major Hornsby, Mr. Crocker, Major Angus, Mr. Anderson? Who else is an asshole? These men are a fucking joke. They're hanging around here, staring at the women. They're walking slowly. Not allowed. They've got to be hustled forward and made to move. Double quick time. Hop, 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 hop. Get them moving this time. Don't let them dawdle past these women. Make them move fast. 3, 2, 1, action!
There's no use standing around in the background in these big battle pictures. Thousands of extras, everybody wearing hats, you know.
Don't be a sluggard now.
The marching scenes are always wild because then it's sort of free for all, you know, nobody's armed, you know, so that the actor next to you can't turn around and shoot you for, like, you know, stepping in front between him and the camera. You got 60 guys and, you know, 3 of them have lines in the scene, you know, but everybody's been down there for 9 weeks. Of course, they're going to go up and say, well, hell, I got to make this worth my while. I'm getting my face in the camera. Get out of my way, pal.
In between takes, it seemed like everybody was talking politics.
Anti-religion is not any interreligion.
It's very healthy.
Sí, por eso decía que es un fenómeno nuestro.
But very difficult.
Muy dificultoso.
A lot of the gringo extras came from the ranks of the so-called Sandinistas.
My name is Sean Minock, and I'm from Hawaii, and I'm here with the Jugglers for Peace.
An international brigade of leftists and do-gooders who had come to demonstrate solidarity with the Nicaraguan revolution.
You can watch the news and read papers and stuff, but you don't really get a feeling for the people unless you come down and you're part of it.
But when the film came to town, they couldn't resist the Hollywood allure or a chance to make some money.
But I didn't get the order. They wanted us specifically to hurry up and to wait.
By the last weeks of the production, the glamour of filmmaking had pretty much worn off.
Now, what's the problem here?
No problem. Everything's great.
Yeah, everything's just fine, really.
No, it's just a typical kind of hierarchical structure. A lot of people are really fucked. Pushing people around, don't know what to do, making them stand in the sun with no water.
Private.
Paying them nothing. Paying Nikas less than nothing.
So how much are you guys getting paid?
The equivalent to $6.50 is what these guys worked out. Then came the inflation.
But when a currency devaluation occurred, it cut the spending capacity in half.
And then what happened?
We basically decided by that time we're either going to get a raise or we're going to organize and just stop working.
I think the extra strike is a clear case of foreigners working in Nicaragua at different wages that Nicaraguans work.
Well, after we told Lorenzo that, he said that, you know, how we were getting paid great compared to the Nicaraguans, that we didn't deserve such pay.
Our line producer, Carlos Alvarez from Nicaragua, from Incine, you know, was earning the wage of $50 a week. In other words, our extras were earning a week the same thing that our Nicaraguan line producer was.
Then one of the people with us wrote up a letter, and we all signed it.
Oh, they gave it to Alex, and Alex posted it on the board in the Intercon. And some officials saw it and thought there'd be an international scandal if it got out how little they were paying us. So, like, there was official word from the totalitarian state to give us a raise.
Every Wednesday, there was a protest held in front of the American embassy.
One day in Nicaragua, Benjamin Linder died because he had some dreams. Reagan wanted to hide. They talk about national security.
For the first time, the blood of a U.S. citizen working for the peaceful development of Nicaragua was mingled with the blood of so many other thousands of people who have been killed trying to better the conditions of life in Nicaragua.
Could have been me, but instead it was you.
And just a few little statistics. We thought that our losses in Vietnam were great, and indeed they were. We lost some 55,000 out of 225 million. That computes to about 1 out of every 4,000 Americans lost their lives. Here in little Nicaragua, 50,000 lost their lives to get rid of our dictator, and another 30,000 victims to maintain that freedom. That's 80,000, not out of 225 million, but out of 3 million. That's at least 1 out of every family in Nicaragua. And so in our moment of silence, let us remember Ben Linder, Paulo Rosales, and Sergio Hernandez, the 3 that were killed a week ago. Let us remember them.
This one I was going to be coming to Nicaragua for to lay bricks.
Sorry, camera. 3, 2, 1. Action.
Sir, but your work is here.
Sir, conductor. I have with you forward and legal good and practical lawyer. Take But we like seeing Mr. French fall off the table so much, we want to do it again.
I mean, I had all sorts of ideas before we started about what we would do and why we would do it, but they all go out the window. Every time, you know, you start out planning how the film should be. It doesn't last beyond day 2 if it gets that far.
Looks great against Lake Managua.
Against the volcano in the background. Keep digging.
Oh, yeah. In the next scene, we're bodyguards. So I figured we should be bodyguards here. But then Alex said, no, he doesn't want us to be bodyguards, but maybe we should be punished doing push-ups on the beach. And I thought, you know, I've seen many times people buried in the sand. It's a great image. So he liked that idea. But then we found out we got to dig our own hole.
Lemuel has to be whacked in a wanky so he doesn't get his costume dirty.
Yeah, I thought this was one of a series of episodes where the white man from the U.S. has intervened in Nicaragua for their own purposes without caring very much about the needs of the Nicaraguan people.
You don't know nothing about the story, do you?
General, I thought I had a general,
he's a tourist.
general idea.
He's a solid person.
He's a regular guy. He's not an expert on it.
Well, you know.
Walker came here to try to save these people, take them out of oppression, give them a chance to be a democratic society.
So you mean to tell me that Mr. Walker was really concerned about the needs of the Nicaraguan people?
Is that hard to believe?
But in reality, Mr. Walker had his own private army and dominated Nicaragua. And it was just one of the many...
Read the book.
Okay.
What book?
There's 3 of them.
Walker wrote one, and it was 2 others.
I'll read the ones written by others.
Yeah.
My pet peeve is all of these liberal foreigners that come into this country to try to change or help people who really don't need help. The best help we can give them is to get out, leave them alone, and let them run their own country.
Well, I can't.
Well, and do you want a tarantula? Or no tarantula?
Una.
No tarantula.
Smoke and drink.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Here, near.
Silencio, por favor.
It'll move.
Quiet.
Running.
Action.
I will not fight in church. I will not fight in church. I won't fight church. I won't fight church.
Cut. Great. Let's do one more.
So often I've just been in the background or behind the camera or off shot. But in an Alex Cox film, you must expect that. After all, no one else in the film has got more than 2 lines each. Except for Walker, of course. That's the way it works.
The Battle of San Jacinto marked the turning point in the war against Walker. Outmanned and outarmed, the Nicaraguans nevertheless prevailed. The victory is celebrated like Independence Day. It's a national holiday and everybody gets the day off. Everybody but those working on a film crew.
You know what I mean.
Actually, the biggest thrill for me was doing the directing, because it's my first time doing that on film. I've directed for the stage for many, many years. But because it was a new experience to me and it was a new creative outlet, that was perhaps my most exciting experience here.
Adding to the excitement was a surprise visit from Tomas Borge, one of the founding fathers of the Sandinistas. Borge was imprisoned from 1956 to 1959 for having knowledge of a plot to assassinate the dictator Somoza. Years later, he faced his torturers in a court of law, and the court entitled him to name his punishment. Borge's reply was, "My punishment is to forgive you."
Eso es. Cara de odio, jodido. Eso es. Cara de odio, pendejo. Encabronate. Encabronate. Encabronate.
Ahora sí. Rápidamente, rápidamente.
Está bien. Más rápido.
Muy rápido. Inmediatamente. Perfecto. Todavía está. Se vea que está anticipando de tomar la piedra.
Hola, Alex. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias. ¿Vos? Encantado de verte.
Encantado de verte también, otra vez.
Sí.
¿Recuerdas la primera vez?
Sí, en el hotel.
En el hotel, sí. Cuando estabas...
Me estaba ayudando aquí a dirigirlo. ¿Vale? Él está dirigiendo.
Él es el director de este. Yo estoy aquí solamente para ayudar.
El director es el comandante. Le estoy ayudando a dirigirlo.
Bueno, vamos a dirigir juntos.
unofficial, but please give me your attention, because the sound person is going to record us singing this.
Well, it begins with her doing Onward Christian Soldiers, then we come in on marching, right?
And for this particular film, he created a kind of chaos, but with a lot of perimeters. It seemed like chaos, and by creating that chaos, he got chaos.
You can sing it in Spanish or English.
So everybody should know what we're going to sing.
Well, I know, somebody has to lead everybody.
Yeah.
Originally, that whole scene was supposed to take place in what we call the tent city outside of the real cathedral in Granada, in the main square. And one day, just we went to see this cathedral just for the hell of it, just to go and see what kind of a place is it. And it just dawned on me that the character that the whole movie was taking place and the way Alex perceived things about this movie, it seemed like the perfect place to do that kind of a scene, a bizarre, I don't know how I would even call it, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sandinista.
The place obviously helped us because it happens to be a cathedral that was destroyed by the earthquake, and it's not sacred anymore. It doesn't belong to the church anymore, it belongs to the state. So therefore we got permission easy even to burn and to do whatever we wanted to do. It's one of those lucky breaks that you get every now and then. I hate to say it, but without the earthquake it wouldn't have been possible because no church would have allowed us to do that. And there is no way we could have built anything like that.
Great! Let's do it again. Let's shoot it.
The arrival of the picture sequence helicopter was actually one day late, and it sent everybody scurrying into hysteria, the fact that our helicopter hadn't arrived on the day it was supposed to arrive. You see, Maritza has to get a permit from the armed forces tomorrow morning.
Does she anticipate a problem?
She doesn't know. It's a matter of making the overture to keep it here. Fortunately, we hadn't finished shooting what we needed to shoot.
You think the Hornsby shot, you can't get the Hornsby shot off right now? No, but I can get it tomorrow night easily because I can do it at the end of the sequence. We can just run in and do the Hornsby thing, just like then we did the Colonel up against the building. Tomorrow night we can just run up and do Hornsby, get shot.
And the next day, the helicopter finally arrived. The helicopter had been up in the front picking up wounded soldiers. It had missed its date the first day because it was up in the front. It had brought back soldiers to Managua and from the hospital had been flown to the set. The helicopters were donated to us by the Sandinista Air Force. They asked us to pay for the gas. Once we became aware of why the helicopter hadn't made it, we all became very embarrassed by the fact that here we are, playing dead and spurting a lot of blood all over the place while there were many Nicaraguan soldiers being killed at the front.
We got him really good with blood just then. Excellent.
The helicopter brought the war to us. During the whole time we were shooting there, we really never felt the war. We were pampered. We kept on getting all kinds of favors bestowed upon us. We never felt the shortages. So we never really felt the war, as most Nicaraguans feel it. And the only time we really became aware of it is when the helicopter came back from the front and the floors were just splattered with blood.
What do you think we're doing this for?
Well, it's for the money.
No, it ain't for the money, man. Must be, I don't know, for the art.
Yeah, it must be for the art, man.
At one point, we were asked to close down the film on Thursday, and we needed an additional day on Friday to be able to complete After several appeals to the powers that be, I found myself with no other recourse but to appeal to the crew and the actors themselves to work for free on that day. But to make the film happen, sometimes you have no other recourse but to continue to ask them to sacrifice, to continue to shorten the turnaround, to continue to work on Saturday nights, work on Easter Sunday, Holy Friday, 1st of May, the 5th of May. There was never any time I could come up to them and say, look, you know, we're cutting off early. You have an extra half an hour for lunch. Whenever they saw me, they knew it was because I was going to ask them to give up one additional thing.
We're down to 100 corals right here, man. We're in deep trouble.